Hi everyone, it's Taylor. Welcome back to my channel. I'm an American expat living in Malaysia and I like to share my life and travels with you. Well, the other day I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in my 10th year in Malaysia. Want to hear how it's been? Stay tuned. As many of you know, I started the MM2H process in 2014, and I moved to Malaysia without being approved, if you can believe that. But the agent will tell you that if they approve it, it's pretty likely that the government's going to approve it too, because the agent knows just what they're looking for. So I wasn't too worried, and I went ahead and moved here. Flew business class for one of the only times in my life, using miles of course, just because it was a special occasion, taking business class to my retirement destination in Penang, Malaysia. So when I got to Malaysia, I was so happy. Like the second or third day I was here, this was in January 2015, I got my acceptance letter from MM2H. Whoa, was that a relief, and I celebrated. I was living with some friends at the time near the floating mosque in Penang. There were several people living there, but I had a cute room that you can see here. I fixed it up even though I was only there for 6 weeks, because I decided I really want a place of my own. So I decided to go apartment shopping. Well, I can tell you my experience with that was interesting to say the least, because they really do things differently here. I found an agent online who took me around to 3 different places in one day. Well, at the end of the third tour, she said, well, which one do you want? And I said, well, none of them. I'm still looking. And she said, well, you should be able to decide by now. When are you going to be able to decide? So, well, needless to say, I didn't use her anymore. But a word of advice. I found the most effective way to find an apartment in Malaysia is to pick a building first or a complex that you like, and then try to find places in it. Any agent can help you with that. So my first apartment in Malaysia was on the 35th floor of The Peak, a brand new condominium development in Tanjung Tokong. Because it was a new building, I think, the price was a little higher than you would pay now, around 2,000 ringgit a month, or about $500. Well, I was only 60, just about to turn 61, so I couldn't claim any Social Security retirement benefits until 62. So the first year I was living on my own money, my saved money. So I found this place, and it was pretty bare bones as far as kitchens go, but the rest of it was nice. It even had a bathtub. It's the only bathtub I've had since I've been in Malaysia. So I enjoyed it for a while, but it got really noisy because I didn't know in Malaysia that when you buy an apartment, people are still going to fix it up after they move in. They have to finish the kitchens, or replace the floors, or many other things that can make a lot of noise and make your life a living hell. Now, they're only allowed to do the work in the daytime, but that's when I was there mostly, so it drove me crazy. I couldn't even take a nap. Then they started new construction out my window of other buildings, and I just said enough. 1 year was enough in that place. But what else did I do that first year? I needed to meet some new people and friends. So I found expat Facebook groups, joined those, and looked around. I noticed there was this coffee group that met a couple times a week, and I started going to that. I met many nice people through the coffee group, but the main one I'm most excited about is my friend Jill, who has become my best friend. But I met her very early on at the coffee group. So that's a good way to meet people. One of the biggest adjustments moving to Malaysia was adjusting to the food. Well, I was so unfamiliar with most of it. And I still am, after almost 10 years. But I'm getting better, and I'm learning to eat more of it. But I've had my first rendang, my first roti canai, that sort of thing, and I love those. You know what else I tried that first year that I haven't tried again? Was durian. And you can see here me trying it. It wasn't bad, but I'm sorry, I just can't really get past the smell. So adjusting to the food was a bit of a challenge, but a challenge I took on. Once I got approved for my MM2H, I was able to set up a bank account. That's one thing you can't do in Malaysia unless you have a long-term visa. And I had to go to Putrajaya with my agent to get my MM2H finalized and the stamp in my passport. That was such an exciting day. And I thought, well, I can relax about my visa for 10 years. But now that 10 years is almost over. So did I do any traveling my first year? Yes, a bit. I went to Langkawi for the first time, which was amazing. Stayed at the Mauritius Beach Club. Super nice. And had a great time with the cable cars and everything. Langkawi is delightful, and it's less than a 30-minute flight from Penang. I also went to Kuching. Boy, what a difference Eastern Malaysia is. So laid back and quiet. Very, very nice. I loved Kuching. I think I could probably live there, but I prefer Peninsula Malaysia. But here's a couple pictures of me in Kuching. Now you might notice that I don't look nearly as fat as I am now, and that's true, I wasn't. I've gained a lot of weight since I've been in Malaysia. I wonder why. Could it be the delicious food? Possibly. It's also just being retired and not being as active, I think. That first year I also went on a cruise. The cruise was out of Singapore and went to Thailand and Vietnam and then back to Singapore. That was super fun. Oh, about 6 months after being here, I decided I really needed to get around better. Where I was living was quite a hike from anything. So I decided to buy my Vespa. I call it Vicky. And it's been a faithful and reliable ride for me the entire time I've been here. It's a beautiful bike and I just love it. Once I had my bike, I was able to get around everywhere. That was perfect. So in my second year, I call that the settling in phase. As I mentioned before, I was really tired of the noise and construction at my apartment, so I decided to look for a new one. Like I suggested, I found a building I liked called Alila Horizon and started looking there. It only took about 3 apartments to look at before I found one I really liked, which you can see here. It was much fancier than my old one and also a lot more expensive, 2,800 ringgit. It's funny that 10 years later, I'm actually paying 1,000 ringgit less in rent than I was then. But it was a pretty nice place. And I loved Alila Horizon. The amenities were wonderful. The pool, the serene surroundings, there was nothing near it. Well, I mean houses, but no construction or anything like that. I had some family visit. I had my niece and my great niece come. That was wonderful. And then my older sister came to visit too. And she said she was coming for a month, and I thought, oh my goodness, a month? How am I going to amuse her for a month in my apartment? So in the middle, we took 2 weeks and went to Cambodia and Vietnam. Boy, was that a wonderful trip. Really incredible. She was most impressed with Vietnam. So that was pretty much the only travel I did that year, but it was a big trip, 2 weeks. So what else does 2016 bring to mind? Could it be the elections in the US? I'm afraid so. Boy, that was depressing and very upsetting and made me more glad than ever that I'd left the US. Okay, in year 3, I call it the year of keeping busy, or trying to keep busy. I joined the IWA choir, because I do have a decent singing voice, and the International Women's Association, the IWA, is desperate for men in their choir, always. So you don't even have to be that good to get into it. But I enjoyed the choir very much. As I mentioned in my last video about assisted living, we performed in a lot of assisted living facilities in Penang. It was wonderful. I also took mahjong classes with Jill and some other friends. We learned to play mahjong, then started doing it in each other's homes. And they've continued to this day. I have to say I haven't. Another fun thing I found was doing cooking classes. I did this at the G Hotel Kalawai. I'm not sure they're still doing it or not. Maybe, because it was pretty popular, but it was a lovely day and a lovely setting, and we learned a lot of Malaysian dishes. Another thing that happened my 3rd year was I decided that I needed to buy some property in the US. Not Malaysia. I wanted some sort of fallback position, someplace to go if things didn't work out in Malaysia. So I bought a small condo in Clearwater, Florida, as you can see here. I loved the place. Now, I didn't see it, I bought it off the internet. And a few months later, I went there to fix it up, which was delightful. I bought myself a little scooter there, and I was good to go. My plan was to spend the winters there, maybe 2-3 months, just to get away from the oppressive heat in Malaysia once in a while. That didn't work out, however, because it just wasn't economically feasible for me. I couldn't just have the apartment sitting there empty all the time. As far as travel that year, we drove to Koh Lanta, which is in Thailand. Well, that was a long drive, I can tell you, but it was exciting. And it was nice to have a car while we were in Koh Lanta. It's near Krabi and Phuket, somewhere along there. Okay, that brings us to year 4, 2018. I called this full life year because everything was going smoothly. Well, except one thing, you'll see. I continued with the choir, with my mahjong, and my cooking classes, so I was quite busy. I went on a couple of cruises with my friend Jill. Another exciting thing I did in 2018 was to get a couple of cats, Gilligan and Ginger. We got them from Cat Beach, the cat sanctuary there, and they were lovely cats. Unfortunately, Gilligan, who was a kitten, had cat leukemia and only lived 2 years, and Ginger died not too long after that. So that was sad, but by then we had gotten Earl Grey, but I'm getting ahead of myself there. So we got 2 cats that year. As far as travel that year, we went to Koh Lipi, which is a small island, the closest Thai island to Malaysia, and you take a ferry from Langkawi to get there. It was wonderful. I highly recommend it. We spent a week there, and then I took another trip to Langkawi with Jill and one of her daughters, and that's where I found out some bad news about my condo in the US. Oh my gosh. There had just been a hurricane there, and I asked my sister to go check on the condo, make sure it was okay after the hurricane. Well, it didn't get any damage from the hurricane, but it did have black mold. Oh my goodness. It had only been 3 weeks since someone had been in there. So that stuff moves fast. Well, this was a horrible experience for me. I had to make a quick trip back to the US, and I spent about 6 weeks there redoing the apartment, which involved ripping out walls and ceilings and everything and getting rid of the furniture, and oh my gosh, it was a nightmare and cost me about $30,000. Well, because of that, I decided I couldn't afford to keep the apartment empty anymore, and I decided to rent it out, which I did shortly after I returned with the help of my sister. So be careful if you leave apartments unoccupied, especially in tropical climates. Black mold is nothing to fool with, and it can move quickly. Okay, now we're in year 5, 2019, and I call this year completely comfortable in Malaysia. I made more friends, but you know, I'm not a big group kind of person. These activities that the expats have with big parties with a lot of people, I don't like that. I mean, my max to be comfortable is about 6 people. That way everybody can share. I don't like just wandering around in a big group of people. I was still doing choir and mahjong, and I also started doing something I did for a while, just to pass the time, to keep myself busy, because I like to stay busy. I started doing these little miniature Legos. My goodness, they were fun. You can see some of them here. Now, these are kits, and they have as many as 8,000 pieces, so it takes a while to do, although I found it a challenge to get them done as fast as I could. This one I created myself of my childhood home where I grew up. It's really not these colors, but it's a very accurate depiction of the house, and I'm quite proud of it. Also, by this time, I was sort of tired of having my apartment face west towards the setting sun and have tremendous heat all afternoon. It was terrible. We had to close the drapes all afternoon and have no view, and it was just dark and depressing. So I decided to look around for a new apartment in the same building, and I found one that faced north, and I just loved it. It never got any direct sun into the apartment, but had an ocean view, and it was wonderful. Tropical cross breezes coming through all day. I loved that apartment. Earl Grey loved it too. because at this point he was living alone. He didn't have any cat brothers and sisters. So my big travel that year was a 2-week cruise from Singapore to Hong Kong over Christmas and New Year's. And Jill came along too, which was wonderful. It was a terrific cruise, and I was so enjoying it. So the end of the cruise ended in Hong Kong. That was the beginning of 2020. And as we got off the ship, we were hearing rumors in Hong Kong about some virus somewhere and some cruise ship that had problems with it. Well, we didn't know what was going to hit us, but we did soon enough. And that moves us into year 6, 2020, the COVID years. I can tell you, when you're under lockdown, it is nice to have a beautiful home, I can tell you that. But as you all can remember, those were scary times. No one knew what was going to happen with it, and certainly no one expected it to go on so long. Oh my gosh. Lockdown after lockdown after lockdown in Malaysia. It was unbelievable. I had made plans for several cruises that year that were all canceled. What a drag. Between lockdowns, when things opened up a little bit, some of the hotels around Penang had incredible deals, of course, because there was no interstate travel then. So I did several staycations that year. One at the beautiful E&O. I never would have been able to afford it otherwise. Same with the Shangri-La in Batu Ferringhi. That was wonderful too. And I did a couple of others too. Campbell House and the Hilton. So I really needed to keep busy. And I don't know, I think some of you know that I went to art school. I've never really done much with it. But this time I thought, well, I'm going to do some art. So I did all this art that you see here and gave most of it away to friends. But it kept me busy for months and months and months, and that was the important thing. That was my way of getting through that year of COVID. Unfortunately, my relationship at the time was kind of rocky, and we could see the end was in sight. And indeed it was. So that moves us into year 7. Yeah, that's 7. Of course, it was still COVID, still locked down, but they had vaccines by then, so that was great. I did more COVID art, but things were loosening up a bit. Still no interstate travel though. So early in 2021, my relationship finally ended completely, and I was single again, so I started looking into the dating scene. And it's like anywhere else these days, any place in the world, you just get on a dating app and then you meet new people. I met a few people. After a few months, I met someone special, but they lived in KL. Well, I couldn't even travel to KL at that point, so we didn't get to meet in person for 4 months. But when we did, it was decided right away that I was going to go ahead and move to KL. Even though I loved Penang, I don't know, the relationship seemed to be worth it. So I went ahead and moved, got rid of a lot of things, got a little truck to haul a few boxes and furniture that I was bringing with me, and my Vespa. Had to hire a car and driver to bring me in Earl Grey because he couldn't go on the bus or the train. Then I had to adjust to KL as opposed to Penang. My goodness, what a difference. Penang is so laid back and such an easy lifestyle. KL is hectic and hot and crowded and traffic and I hate to say that. I have gotten more used to it, and I am probably going to stay here, at least for now. But it was a huge adjustment. Everything's more expensive, except oddly enough my apartment. But food, restaurants definitely are more expensive in KL. So I didn't really do any traveling that year, except back and forth from Penang to KL until I finally moved here in 2022. That brings us to 2022, year 8. I did go on one short cruise in 2022 after things had opened up. But other than that, didn't do much traveling. My big event for 2022 was starting my YouTube channel. Oh my gosh, I sort of did it as a lark, but it took off right away, and here I am almost 2 years later, and it's going really strong with almost 20,000 subscribers. Thanks you guys so much. Just learning how to do YouTube and all that it involves was a big thing and took a lot of my time, as I'm sure you realize. But it's been very rewarding, and I just love it. That brings us to year 9, 2023, last year. I did another cruise in January. And these cruises are just local. They just go from like Singapore to Penang and Phuket and back. There's just not a lot of variety in the cruises here. I continued with my YouTube, of course. You all expect it. And then I had a family visit with my sister and brother-in-law. I'm sure you've probably seen the interview with my brother-in-law and sister while they were here. So actually, I can say I was probably never happier in my life. But then the rug was pulled out from under me when my relationship ended again. I mean, it had been 2 years, but that wasn't enough for me, and I wasn't ready for it to end, but it did. So I started dating again. I'm too old for this stuff, I kept telling myself. But I've met someone new and someone nice. I think they're a keeper. So I had some other new opportunities in 2023 too. I'm sure some of you remember that I was asked to speak at the Nomad Capitalist Live event. Boy, that was exciting. I got to speak to a group of 400 people about being an expat in Malaysia. That was wonderful. I met a lot of fun people at that conference. I also got to meet a lot of viewers traveling here, taking me out to coffee or lunch. That was so fun. And some of the new viewers that had moved to Malaysia have become close friends of mine, and that's great. Oh my gosh, like Jeremy and Claire? Please, they're like my favorite friends ever. Sorry, Jill. No, that can't be. Jill's still my best friend. But Jeremy and Claire are YouTubers with their channel For Real in Cambodia, and I went to visit them there. That was incredible. I'm sure I'll be back to Cambodia soon. Towards the end of 2023, I was looking at my passport, and I urge any of you who have visas or MM2H or whatever visa, keep your eye on the expiration date. I mean, in my head, I thought it was like in October of 2024. Turned out it was April 2024. So that was only 9 years of MM2H, and I had 1 more year. So I had to get that changed to my new passport, which I had to get. But that was a breeze. Let me tell you, I've never had such an easy passport experience. I just went down to the American Embassy, filled out an application, turned it in. Less than 1 week later, over Christmas I might add, I had my new passport in hand. Unbelievable. Thank you, U.S. Embassy, Kuala Lumpur. So here I am in my 10th year in Malaysia. Do I still love it? Absolutely. I love Malaysia. I have no desire, zero desire, to ever return to the U.S., even for a visit, although I guess I might go for a visit sometime. It has been an incredible ride these almost 10 years. I've lived in 4 different places. I've had 3 relationships. Geez, maybe I should settle down. So what do I see for the future here? I see, well, this year I'm turning 70. Yuck. That's scary, 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 let me tell you. But I continue to be active. I'm riding my bike still. I'm getting out, and I want to continue to do all of that. I'm making new friends still and really enjoying life and enjoying my new relationship and enjoying KL. So I hope you all enjoyed that brief overview of my almost 10 years in Malaysia. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe and check the notification bell too, so you won't miss any of my content. I have some other videos in the works, another interview with an American, and an intriguing dining venue here in Kuala Lumpur. Well, actually, I think it's in the suburbs, but look forward to that. It's really cool. But that's all I have for today, everyone. Thanks for sitting through all this. I hope it wasn't boring listening to me drone on about my life here. But let me tell you, I couldn't have a happier life if I tried. So that's all I have for today, everyone. Talk to you later. Bye.